Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. This is the 13th night in a row we have led this show with the Brett Kavanaugh story. And it looks like after delays and countless twists in the saga, it may finally be coming to a conclusion. The FBI investigation, the one that Senator Jeff Flake demanded last Friday, appears to be wrapping up. A final vote could be held this weekend. That's what they're saying. But what's remarkable is that after all we have learned, there are still basic questions that remain unanswered, central ones that pertain directly to the core allegations here, the ones that Christine Ford made more than 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, for example, Fox News obtained a written declaration from an ex-boyfriend of Christine Ford's. In that declaration, which was made under oath, the ex-boyfriend says that Ford once coached a friend through a polygraph exam to help her get a federal job. If true, that would contradict what Ford told Congress. The man also says that during their entire 6-year relationship, Ford never mentioned being a victim of sexual assault or of any other kind of trauma. He says that she flew on airplanes many times, including on small prop planes around Hawaii. You'll recall that her lawyer said she was too afraid to fly to come to Washington. They also said she was a claustrophobic. He claims she was not at all afraid of enclosed spaces. Are these claims true? We don't know. Ford disputes them, and there is no evidence to support them independently. But there's also no evidence, you'll remember, to support Ford's allegations against Brett Kavanaugh. And that is the point. We need to know more. But we don't know more because nobody is asking these questions and many other questions. For example, we still haven't seen Ford's therapy notes or the notes on the polygraph exam she says she took. Ford's legal team is only now, at the very last moment, offering to reveal these, but only if the FBI agrees to interview Christine Ford. Why weren't these notes turned over at the very beginning of all of this? If the goal was to get to the truth, they would have been, of course. Why has Ford apparently told different stories about whether she showed her therapy notes to the Washington Post or simply described their contents to the paper? That's significant because it bears directly on her credibility. And Christine Ford's credibility is literally the only reason to believe that her story is true. So that matters. And there are other obvious unanswered questions. Here's this one. Ford says the assault defined her entire life. Apparently, she thought about it every day. It defined her academic performance. It affected all of her personal relationships. And yet she says she told not a single other human being about it for fully 30 years. How can that be? Well, here's an idea. In a Washington Post profile, Ford says that she, quote, came to understand her assault and its significance during a psychotherapy session. What does that mean exactly? Is Ford's story, at least in part, a recovered memory? This is a central question because most psychiatrists consider recovered memories, however sincere, as roughly as reliable as dreams. It's worth getting a clear answer on that, but so far nobody has because nobody has asked that question. Why is that? When an adult makes a serious allegation, asking real questions is the only correct response. It's not an attack to ask for follow-ups or probe inconsistencies. It's not victim shaming. In fact, it's patronizing not to. We don't consider Christine Ford a child. Many of her advocates clearly do. The press obviously does. Instead of gathering facts about this story, they are busy moralizing and lecturing the rest of us about how Brett Kavanaugh's very existence proves that an entire class of people is evil. Just the other day, Donald Trump Jr. made the point that what he's been watching on television makes him fear for his sons. Watch.
And when I see what's going on right now, it's scary.
So who are you scared most for, your sons or your daughters?
I mean, right now, I'd say my sons. I mean, I want to bring my daughters up to be tough, but every situation is different, but I would hope that they would act if something terrible like that happened. But when the other side weaponizes it against men and says, 40 years later, we can bring it up, and you did something in high school that no one remembers, but it should disqualify you from ever doing anything again, it really diminishes the real claims.
Now, maybe you agree with that, maybe you don't. It's hardly a crazy point, though, and it might be worth talking about. But no, over on CNN, they took those remarks as a cue to once again attack an entire ethnic group on the basis of ethnicity. Watch this.
Every night, I cry myself to sleep over the fate of white men in America. White men have no power. White men, I mean, it's such garbage. If you sexually assault someone in high school, your life should be ruined. All this whining about the poor plight of white men is ridiculous.
You're hearing a lot of this filth recently, and it's wrong because racism is always wrong, no matter who it is aimed at. You should not attack people for their immutable characteristics, period. We have made that point consistently again and again over the past 2 years on this show. You shouldn't ever reduce people to their skin color because they're much more than that. You ought to treat people as individuals, unique human beings, not faceless members of a tribe sorted by hue. That's exactly the argument you could have made in 1960 against Bull Connor, and if we'd been there, we would have made that argument. It's the same argument we are making today. It was true then, it is true now, it always will be true. Now, you wouldn't think you'd have to say something that obvious in a developed country, one that literally has a statue of Martin Luther King on the National Mall. But we do have to say that. We have no choice. And for the crime of arguing against racism, we are denounced by the left as, yes, racists. Well, that's insane. In fact, it's Orwellian. It's the mirror image of the truth. But there is a reason that they are saying it. Our elites stoke race hatred in order to divide this country against itself. People are easier to control when they are divided into tribes sorted by color. It is that simple. It is also that evil, just like the racism they are peddling to you. We will never endorse that against any group at any time, period. Francie Hakes is a former DOJ National Coordinator for Child Exploitation, Prevention, and Interdiction, and she joins us tonight. Francie, thanks for coming on. Now, I know that you have worked in this field for so long, and that's why I wanted a reality check from you on some of these outstanding questions. And I want to say the obvious at the outset. I'm not impugning anyone's character or story, but I think it's fair to ask the most basic question, which is this a recovered memory or not? Are you aware that anyone has asked that question of Christine Ford?
Tucker, one of the things that disturbed me the most about the hearing last week were the questions that weren't asked by Rachel Mitchell. And that included anything about Dr. Ford's memories, the memories of the event, the memories of the events surrounding the event, the memories of giving information and paperwork to the Washington Post, what happened at her polygraph. It appeared to me that there were some memory questions asked that left a whole lot of other questions in limbo. We never got anything that would have helped us with the question of her memory and how it came about. You're so right about that.
So would it be an attack on a witness, on someone who says she's been a victim of a crime, to say, you say that this memory became significant to you in the course of a psychotherapy session 30 years after the fact. Did you remember all the details of it for the 30 preceding years? And if so, why did you not, if it defined your life, why did you not say anything to anyone else? Would that, do you think, be an attack on her, or would it be a legitimate question?
Well, Tucker, if you look at Twitter, any question of someone who alleges she's been assaulted is an attack. But I've put 5-year-old little girls on the witness stand who had to face withering cross-examination from men about whether or not they were telling the truth, how much they remembered, testing their memory at every turn, testing their credibility. 5-year-olds. So if they can do it, Dr. Ford can do it and should have done it. So
what does it tell you? And boy, that must have been tough. I mean, I definitely wouldn't want to do that, though I agree with you. It has to be done because due process demands it. But what does it tell you about how Christine Ford's advocates feel about her, that they believe that she cannot withstand and shouldn't have to withstand basic questions about her story?
You know, I mean, I don't know Dr. Ford. If I was Dr. Ford, I'd be insulted at someone saying I'm not tough enough to stand up and take questions about something that was seared into my memory and that I feel like I haven't gotten justice for. I mean, I'm not kidding about having put up 5-year-old little girls who have said, I want to testify, I want to tell the truth, I want him to go to jail. And they make that decision for themselves. To say that a grown woman can't make that kind of decision for herself insults all women. I'm insulted.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, you know, if you're going to... Right, I agree with that completely. Francie Hakes, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tucker.
Well, we have some news for you.